I had never dreamt of joining the military, but there I was, freaking 17, 18 years old in a damn uniform. Hi, I'm Xanthi, the feral academic, and welcome to the authentic academic movement where we are feral, honest, and anti bullshit. In this vlog, I'm going to talk about my journey of how I had pretty much since I was a child, like 4 or 5 years old, I wanted to go to art school. And at the very last minute, in my senior year of high school, I decided to join the Air Force. You may ask, why? Just why? Why would you do that? I was just sitting in my lunchroom. I see the recruiter desk outside. Air Force. Let me check this out. The people who were running the desk were young, so it looked like they were recent Air Force enlistees that were doing their recruiter's assistance program, which is a program that you can apply for where you go back to where you signed up and you can just help out the recruiter. I don't know. There's something that was pulling me towards it. I had gone ahead and scheduled an appointment to meet with her. I actually was obsessed with photography, so I wanted the job that was still photography. Short story long, I ended up accepting 4EO X1, which is administrative in the medical field. I did not want it, but the recruiter told me, "Oh, it's a great job. Everybody would love that job. We don't have the photography position available." Okay, there it was. For context, I'm actually an Army brat, as they say. Not everyone enjoys that term. They find it derogatory, like some military kids prefer like a military child, which is true, but I honestly don't mind Army brat. My dad is retired military, and I grew up on an Army base most of my life, so the military was not as unknown to me as it would have been for other people. To me, the uniform was just what I knew. My dad coming home, he had his boots, he would iron his uniform. And this is the era of BDUs, which is like the very common like uniform that we see in like older movies. And then I would have friends that were also military kids and their parents were in the military, having to do the Pledge of Allegiance in school, being mindful of like military ceremonies. So I came in with that. The overarching question is, I skipped college to join the military, and was it a mistake? I will get to that later, so you just have to stay tuned. The story requires a lot of background info. Basically, to go back to the high school situation, I was already accepted to art school, so no, it wasn't like an act of desperation. I was accepted to all of the schools that I wanted to go to. I had applied for SCAD in Georgia, Savannah College of Art and Design, Virginia Commonwealth University, an Institute of Photography in Santa Barbara, Otis College of Art and Design. I'm a person that hates the heat. I already knew, no, I do not want to be in basic training while it's the summer. I'm going to pass out. So I was there for Christmas and New Year. That was a whole unique experience in itself. So the option at the time was, if you have a bachelor's degree, instead of being an E1, which is like obviously the first rank that you receive when you join, you're the baby, you could become an E3. The only difference is that you get a little bit of more pay. It's not even that much. If you have a degree and you're joining the military, just become an officer. You'll make way more money and you'll have way more responsibility. You're more like above everyone else, which can create weird dynamics because there's the enlisted side, E, and then the officer side, O. Sometimes, O1s, they'll join, but then they'll be younger than like the E5s. And technically all of the O's are above the E's, no matter how much experience they have. So that's an interesting hierarchy. I had joined as an E1 because I did not have college experience. I was literally a teenager. My dad had helped me physically train. Like we ran all the time. Even when I wanted to give up, he'd be like, "No, you gotta get through it," because if you are not physically in shape when you're in basic training, you are going to regret it because you will be left behind. You will be struggling. You might eat. Then the worst thing is that you might get recycled in your weeks because, gosh, it's been so long. I think at the time there was 6 weeks. Is it 6 or 8? It might have been 6. 6 weeks of training. If you did not pass the minimum, you had to go back and be like, "Nope, you're not graduating in 6 weeks. You got to recycle and go back to the back." I did my best to be woken up and running. I had decided to join the Air Force instead of go to college because I felt like it would be an interesting transition into adulthood because it would also be a safety net. And some of you might be like, military? Safety net? Are you wild? But I mean, in the sense of like financially, job wise, and just, having a structure and a system versus there you go off into the world, do your thing. 17, 18, 19 year olds that join the military, we're still young. We're still, I don't want to say the word children because we are adults technically, but we're still do not know things about the world. I knew that about myself and I wanted like discipline instilled into me. And also the challenge of like going into something that people wouldn't expect. Like you would see me and you'd be like, you in the military? Are you sure you don't mean it's your daddy? Like, so, which, I mean, it's true in this case. I just like the challenge of it. I go into tech school, which is technical training for your job. So for me, it was the medical job. And both of these things were in Texas. I mean, the basic training was in Texas, the tech school was in Texas. They teach you all the skills of your job. So there was a lot of like medical terms I was learning and practicing customer service and a lot of memorization, how to be a good paper pusher. At the same time, you're still doing your physical training and all these other things. The military lifestyle that you're being taught. Tech school is a bit more freedom. You're not completely free because they're still keeping an eye on you and you have a roommate and you have rules that you have to follow. It's like the military version of college, tech school, because especially I think the base where I was at had a reputation of like just people being so hormonal because in basic training it's divided by men and women in your flight. So unless you're gay, you're kind of just like deprived. Basically, when people arrive at tech school, they're just like, oh my God, there's men. Oh my God, there's women. People called it the STD capital of the Air Force, which is not great. But it tells you about how desperate people are because I heard stories about like people using the back of dumpsters or in the clubs closet. I was kind of oblivious to all that because I was too focused on my own stuff. Honestly, when I was in tech school, the greatest memory that I have was watching Across the Universe and being obsessed with Sweeney Todd and watching it on my laptop and dancing to Hannah Montana on my little iPod speaker. So then next time I freak out, I just kept looking down. Anyway, you graduate, you finish, you pass. And then you get sent to your base. And it's terrifying because you can request your dream sheet about like the top bases you wish to go to. And mine was all across Europe, Asia. I was like, yes, I would love to go back home to Germany. And then first they sent me to Mississippi, but then at the last minute they sent me to Texas. Where is this? Where is this on the map? They call it the armpit of Texas. It's like really close to Eagle Pass and close to San Antonio, but it's the place where nobody wants to go to. My friend, she was like, oh my God, we're going there. It was so funny because my friend was so distraught. She was like, you know what? We can't allow them to send us there. We can't. So we're going to march into that meeting and we're going to tell them no. And then when we went in there, she said nothing. And we were like, yes, sir. Because they're so intimidating that you feel like, if we said anything, they wouldn't have allowed us anyway. It's the military. That was the end of that. I end up going to Texas and I will mix in the academic conversation here, I swear. The thing about the Air Force, I can't speak for the other branches, but they value education and knowledge improvement so much. You are encouraged to take online classes while you're serving, but only after you finish your CDCs, which is your career development course, so you can understand your role better to the next level. Once you pass those are a big deal, the CDCs, you will have the access to attend university classes online. And it's a great program. Honestly, I did my foundation classes while I was serving in the Air Force. And that way, when I got out, I didn't have to take math, science, blah, blah. I just took all of the stuff I actually wanted to do, which I appreciated so much. The Air Force is amazing for that. They will pay for it. and it doesn't even come out of your GI Bill, like your education benefits that you use when you get out. So that was a huge factor for me as well. If people were asking, like, why'd you join the Air Force? I have a multitude of reasons that I wanted to join, but I will admit that having free education was a huge part of it. Education's expensive. There are people that get their bachelor's, their master's, their PhDs when they're serving, especially if they're serving for a really long time. It's just a matter of like, can you balance your day job with this? And if you're determined, you can. Being a teenager in early 20s, I did learn discipline. I did learn how to deal with people, how to work with people, customer service. I mean, there's so many situations. I had an airman. Oh yeah, by the way, we're called airmen regardless of gender. It's not soldier, that's army. Do not call us soldiers. It's airmen. There is an airman who came in who was like a sergeant, and she was complaining because at the time I worked in referral management. So my job actually, I'm able to rotate. So I worked in outpatient records, referral management, IT, personnel and administration. Oh, flight medicine front desk as well, where I got to see all the cute pilots. I was working in referral management, and there was a airman woman who said, I've been waiting forever for my fertility referral. I'm trying to get an appointment there at the hospital. And since we were a small clinic, we always had to refer people out constantly, whether that be at the local, civilian clinics or the main military one that was in San Antonio. This whole thing. And I felt so bad because I was looking in the system and I was like, yeah, it's there. There's like several weeks of wait. And then she got so upset. She was like, in tears, and she was like, you don't know what it's like to have a miscarriage and then just be told to wait several weeks to get your appointment. And I was like, oh shoot, so there would be situations like this, and I learned how to empathize, how to manage these, and try to find the ways to help people as best as I could. This is the thing that you don't see or think about when you think of the military, because you think about all the Hollywood movies where everyone's deployed. What about the families? What about when the military members get sick? That is what I see. I see the humanity. I see the kids come in, the spouses, the ones who feel very entitled and wear their spouse's rank. No shade, officer wives. This is where I learned to become an adult, a very responsible adult. And I am not bragging, but I will say I was amazing at my job. Like, I had brought in systems to that job that weren't there before, that was great for organization. The system, as in like the military system, tended to take advantage of that when things are like, oh wow, she's good at this, we're going to exploit it. I got like really, really overwhelmed and felt like a number, couldn't advocate for myself, and I ended up going through this whole mental health crisis. It was a really rough time in my life, like one of the worst, and I got through it though. I had the support systems that I needed and got through it, and I became a better person for going through it. I remember one of my sergeants, she's so lovely. I hope she's doing well. I remember my mom was visiting me, and I'm a workaholic, so I was just working late while my mom was visiting me in Texas, and she was like, why are you still here? It's like 7 p.m. and the clinic closes at 5. And I was like, but I have to do this work. I have to do this spreadsheet. And then she was like, you are not getting paid overtime for being here. Your mom is visiting. The job will be there tomorrow. And I was like, damn, no one's ever like said that to me. Somebody who was like, you need to take care of yourself and live your life. Like, the military is not everything, especially in an admin job. It really sat with me even today, obviously, because I'm talking about it now. But it's like, that makes me think about like you, and whether you're like a university student or you're working, and really thinking about like what you are spending your time on. Yes, it's great to be a great employee, but is it also hurting you that like you're not finding time to have a healthy boundary between work life and personal life? Then that's not great. It's wrong, because you should not prioritize your work over your personal life. In fact, it should be your personal life over the work. It's just sad that because we're such a capitalist country that we don't have a good work-life balance, like even more so than Europe. At least everything's closed on Sunday and they value family time. But In the US, it's not. In the government, more so. If you are someone that is considering joining the military, I will preface this to say that I am older than I look, and there is so much that has changed when I joined. I joined in 2007. I very much encourage you to look on the website, talk to a recruiter, talk to people that are actually in right now, because it has changed, considering also who is the commander in chief at this time. It is a great way to get your education covered and to meet people and to grow. One thing that I loved the most out of like all the painful stuff I had gone through, it was a mix. I would say whenever people are like, did you enjoy the military? Yes and no. It's very complex. However, what is not a no is that I met some amazing people. I met so many wonderful friends that I still keep in touch with today, both civilian and military. And my best friend is still in the Air Force doing her thing, and she's about to retire in a few years. So, slay. If you are thinking about joining, there are several branches. The best quality of life would be, guess what? The Air Force. That's the closest living that's close to civilian life. They're pretty spoiled. We were pretty spoiled compared to the other branches. It's pretty numb. So if we're talking about spoiledness, being spoiled, Air Force, Navy, Army, and Marines. Marines got it hard. You got to be a gung-ho mother effer to enjoy the Marines. I don't know if I could survive. I mean, I could. I would be a different person coming out of that place. And then, of course, we have the Coast Guard. Unfortunately, nobody remembers them. Probably up there too, as far as like Air Force, Coast Guard, good quality of life. And there is the Space Force. I do not have information on the Space Force because that was past my time. And they had that TV show. I have a lot of thoughts about military programs and media and stereotypes, but that's for another time. If you don't want to join the military, then don't. But if you're considering it, make sure it's a sound decision. Not everyone can handle a military lifestyle. Some can. Was it a mistake? No, it wasn't. It was hard. Yes, there were times that were traumatic, unrelated to deployments. I never got deployed, but like personal, interpersonal stuff, traumatic indeed. Got through it, informed who I am. I am grateful for all the experiences I went through and the people that I met, and the hard and the soft. It inspired me to write my movie, Chevrons, the horror rom-com that was about Air Force troops. I used my GI Bill. Oh my gosh, CalArts is so expensive. And also USC, which is where I did my master's. And I used my military benefits for both of those. I feel so lucky, at that time. For my PhD, they didn't cover it. So I'm pretty much like, it's a rough time. If you have any questions about military life or education or anything in between that I was talking about, let me know. I honestly feel like this could have been a longer video, but I didn't want it to be too much about like the military nitty-gritty stuff. And as I know, I wanted to focus more on the education and a little context around military education and academia. Another thing I will say is that having a military background, I was like one of the more old people in my bachelor's, and also like coming from such a structured environment where you were like very much expected to do things a certain way. Like, for example, showing up 15 minutes early means you're on time. If you're 5 minutes early, well, damn, you're late. I showed up 15 minutes early to my class in art school, and I'm like, no one's here. The door's locked. The professor showed up and she's like, what are you doing here? Go get breakfast. I was like, what? In 15 minutes, we're starting. It's like people started rolling around during the hour. And then sometimes in classes, the professor would show up late themselves. I was like, this is a whole opposite world. It was literally like going from the military to art school was like the opposite as you could have been. It was pretty funny. Maybe I'll make a video about CalArts and USC, two very different schools. I've lived in many worlds. Art school, military world, film school. I hope that was helpful. Leave any questions if you'd like to. Thank you for being here and for subscribing and hitting like. I honestly appreciate y'all so, so, so much. I am sending you love, hugs, and legal drugs. I will see you in the next video. Love you so, so much.